spring wedding season has arrived, ushering in hefty costs for guests and especially for members of the wedding party. But it can be hard for 20-something to fit extra costs into scant budgets, especially if you have multiple weddings to attend. So be sure to determine what you are signing up for before committing to be part of the ceremony or a guest at a destination wedding, and look for ways to trim costs. If you are asked to be part of a ceremony, don't hesitate to ask the bride and groom up front for details including the event's location and other functions they may expect you to attend. In return, be honest with them about your financial situation. Colleen Baez, 24, attended 4 weddings last year, traveling from Washington to Boston, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia a total of 7 times for dress fittings, bachelorette parties and the ceremonies. It really added up. I had to tell my friend in Boston that I didn't have the money to attend her bachelorette party in Manhattan, she says. If you know you can't afford to fly to a destination wedding in the Caribbean plus a weekend bridal party in Miami, speak up from the beginning, says Susan Rowan, a networking and etiquette expert in San Francisco. It's fair to say I love you, but I don't want to shortchange you if I can't afford to participate in every aspect, she says. Over the past decade we have seen an increase in the intensity of natural disasters worldwide, through the media and for some of us, through first-hand experience. We have witnessed the awesome force of nature. In the recent past we have had natural disasters created by the tsunamis in Southeast Asia and Japan, the earthquakes in Pakistan, Haiti and China, as well as Hurricane Katrina and others in North and Central America. Those caused unprecedented devastation and great loss of life that have been etched in our minds due to their magnitude. Some facts about natural disasters are available through statistics of the International Strategy for Disaster Reduction and the Center for Research on the Epidemiology of Disasters, a subsidiary of the United Nations. They show that there has been an increasing trend of natural disasters, especially over the last 2 decades. The Internet revolution is yet to happen in India, like the way it has happened with cell phones and cable TV. While it's common to see everyone from auto drivers to senior citizens with cell phones, you will rarely find an auto driver who visits a cyber cafe to check his email. This has to do with opportunity cost involved in spending time in cyber cafes and most importantly the lack of services to target a large part of India. The Internet too largely uses American Standard Code for information interchange. This alienates many communities from the boon of computers and Internet. The fact remains that most of India's billion people are denied access to the Internet, and not only because they don't have a connection or a computer. The digital revolution is leaving them behind because they don't speak English, the dominant language of the web. Even if there is room for further growth among English language users in India, far greater growth could be unleashed. Hindi is the world's 3rd or 4th most widely spoken language. Yet it is not even in the top 10 languages on the Internet. A recent trend of regional content is preferred by more and more Internet users. It is recognized that the content has to be in a language that is understood by many users. In the Internet space, this is highly unbalanced currently. 12 out of 6,000 popular languages spoken globally account for 98% of web content, with English most prominent among them. Both music and language have a lot of similarities. They involve complex sequences that unfold in time. They are both forms of communication. This has interested all the world's best philosophers from Plato going back over 2,000 years. Scientists like Darwin wrote about possible evolutionary links between music and language in his book The Descent of Man, and so did artists like Leonard Bernstein, who gave a series of lectures at Harvard in the 70s. He spoke about the grammar of language and the grammar of music from Noam Chomsky's theories. So it's a persistent question. It keeps drawing interest from scientists today, but there are some basic obvious similarities. For examples, both music and language have rhythmic systematic patterns of timing, accent and grouping. Both language and music have melody-structured patterns of pitch, 29 over time. Both have syntax, discrete elements like words or notes, and principles for combining those elements into sequences. Sentences are just random sequences of words. Both convey affect, which means emotion using sound. You can make out a lot of emotion from a person's voice, and music has the characteristic of providing emotions like happiness or sadness. The holiday of Valentine's Day probably derives its origins from the ancient Roman feast of Lupercalia. In the early days of Rome, fierce wolves roamed the woods nearby. The Romans called upon one of their gods, Lupercus, to keep the wolves away. A festival held in honor of Lupercus was celebrated on February 15th. The festival was celebrated as a spring festival. Their calendar was different at that time, with February falling in early springtime. One of the customs of the young people was name drawing. On the eve of the festival of Lupercalia, the names of Roman girls were written on slips of paper and placed into jars. Each young man drew a slip. The girl whose name was chosen was to be his sweetheart for the year. Legend has it that the holiday became Valentine's Day after a priest named Valentine. Valentine was a priest in Rome at the time Christianity was a new religion. The emperor at the time, Claudius II, ordered the Roman soldiers not to marry or become engaged. Claudius believed that as married men, his soldiers would want to stay home with their families rather than fight his wars. Valentine defied the emperor's decree and secretly married the young couples. He was eventually arrested, imprisoned, and put to death. Valentine was beheaded on February 14th, the eve of the Roman holiday Lupercalia. ILSC, headquartered in Canada, first entered the Australian market in 2010 by acquiring the two campuses in Brisbane and Sydney. In 5 years, the Sydney campus has doubled in size, spurring the group to open a third school. Jason Flaming, former school director at ILSC Sydney, will now become Regional Director of Operations, overseeing both the Sydney and Melbourne centres. With this new addition to the ILSC family, we will be providing the uniquely transformative living and learning experience to our Melbourne students while looking to create a special identity that reflects the character and personality of this famous Australian city, he said. Crime in the United States accounts for more death, injuries and loss of property than all natural disasters combined. The Disaster Center is pleased to be able to provide you with access to the statistics of crime compiled by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. When you experience a crime, it can make you respond in ways that you might not understand. In that crisis situation, you may react in ways that conflict with the assumptions you have created about yourself. At the time of the crime, you may feel a sense of helplessness, fear and anger. Afterward, you may have a hard time relating the experience to the context of the assumptions of your life. A conflict often develops between your idea of the world before the crime and your idea of the world after the disaster. On top of this, the victims and their relatives often experience financial problems, and time is often lost from work to handle the legal, insurance and personal problems associated with being a victim. The trauma associated with any crime often makes it hard for victims to cope with normal daily routines. And the victims of crime are frequently blamed by their friends for not being more careful. The trauma continues as victims of crime often find themselves ignored by law enforcement and confused by the court system. Semantic noise in communication is a type of disturbance in the transmission of a message that interferes with the interpretation of the message due to ambiguity in words, sentences or symbols used in the transmission of the message. Let's take a step back for a moment to provide a larger framework that helps you understand the idea of semantic noise a bit easier. Communication is the process of transmitting information from one person to another. Information is a pattern of data organized in a particular way. For example, a sentence consists of symbols that form words in a particular language with a particular meaning. The sentence also utilizes grammar, which is a recognized way to structure words forming a sentence. Noise is any type of disturbance that interferes with the interpretation of the information. Some argue that noise exists in all communication. Semantic noise doesn't involve sound but rather ambiguity in words, sentences or other symbols used in communication. The ambiguity is caused because everybody sees a different meaning in the same words, phrases or sentences. The differences in interpretation can be quite small, even undetectable, in regular communication between people from the same culture, age, education and experience, or drastically different because of such things as culture, age or experience.